Vigilantes? I'm right here with one and only Jake.Sats of Emblem Vault. I am constantly looking for people that take things to the next level. And in this world of hyper Bitcoinization that we're on track to fulfill, I find that I'm very emphatic on those who bring people together, individuals and teams that are actually embracing everyone. And I have to give it to you, Jake. Your team has been very instrumental in pushing the conversation forward and leading the space into areas where people have come to really embrace one another. So thank you for being with us, Jake. How are you doing?
Raphael, appreciate you for inviting me and for acknowledging Emblem. It's for some individuals, it's really tough to understand what's going on under the hood, and that's why we get to have these cool conversations. But the most important part that I hit on a lot since I've joined the space in 2016 is that the social consensus layer is the most important. Technology, the best technology doesn't always win, but those who have the trust and mind share are going to be the ones who win, or at least get some sort of adoption. And honestly, I just like having long form conversations and authentic ones like this. I'm a former podcaster, still a podcaster myself for almost 5 years now at this point. So I appreciate the conversation.
What is Emblem Vault and how did it come to be? I understand that this has been around since 2013, correct?
The history of it goes back to 2013. Yeah, there's at the heart of it, Emblem Vault's a cross-chain tool. It would be something similar to like Layer 0 or Wormhole, or some of these cross-chain solutions, like a crypto bridge is something, or wrapped assets. Emblem Vault kind of combines that. And it actually was the first NFT bridge in existence that created its own interoperability solution. I know it's a bunch of big words, but just basically the way that you move assets across chains is what Emblem Vault pioneered for NFTs specifically. Going into the history, our founder, Shannon Code, was a security developer at Mastercoin in 2013.
I remember Mastercoin.
So he goes back to the first or second protocol on Bitcoin, depending on if you consider colored coins a protocol or not. And after he left Mastercoin, he joined a company called Ribbit Rewards in 2014. Ribbit Rewards was a blockchain that was for travel rewards. Back then, I'm sure you remember, though, that these weren't dApps. You had to start your own blockchain to do anything. Right? This is before Ethereum, before smart contracts. So there was a blockchain called Ribbit Rewards that
which I thought was ridiculous, by the way, to have to start your own blockchain for everything you do. But yeah,
it's tough. And so it eventually, I think, it turned into a company called Loyal, but ultimately it was what the final name for it. And then our founder Shannon ended up acquiring the blockchain. And he turned it into something called Circuits of Value. And in 2016, on the Bitcoin Talk forum, he published the idea of Emblem Vault. And what he published, the original idea was a tradable wallet, which at the heart is what Emblem Vault is. And we'll get into that in a little bit. And so in 2016, he migrated the Ribbit Rewards blockchain community over to Counterparty. Counterparty was the next kind of protocol that popped up on Bitcoin in 2014. So in 2016, Shannon began curating the community, migrated the community over from the first blockchain to Counterparty. And for 3 years, began building on the idea of Emblem Vault. He ended up building something called Circuit Builder, which was kind of the first version of Emblem Vault. And eventually he figured out how to build Emblem Vault, but this was through Ethereum. And so in 2019, after 3 years of being on Bitcoin, he moved over to Ethereum. He migrated the token CoVol from Counterparty on Bitcoin to Counterparty or to Ethereum as an ERC20. And then in 2020, I believe around September, he launched what is now Emblem Vault. And the reason why he left Bitcoin was, because we talked about this a little bit before and we started recording, the block wars that happened in 2017 and the, maximalism that kind of took over Bitcoin thereafter pushed out a lot of the developers who wanted to build on Bitcoin, who really loved it. So he was one of those builders and found that because there was the block height of Bitcoin stayed small, and that the whole community was backing Lightning, there was no room for him to continue building what he wanted to do, which was to create a tradable wallet, a tokenized tradable wallet. So he moved to Ethereum. And in 2020 and early 2021, the counterparty community liked what he was building. And he had been, close with the Pepe community for a long time because he was building a counterparty. So the rare Pepe community in 2021 started using Emblem Vault as a way to trade Bitcoin NFTs on Ethereum. And in 2021, Emblem Vault did about 30,000 ETH of trading volume. So the community used Emblem Vault as a way to, gain adoption, gain awareness, and access programmability in a way that didn't exist on Bitcoin at the time, although it is getting a little bit better now. And through that, Emblem Vault then supported Namecoin NFTs and Dogecoin NFTs and any type of UTXO based NFT, that couldn't trade anywhere else. And during that time, Emblem Vault had a huge breakout, did about 40,000 ETH in trading volume from 2021, 2022. And then fast forward to kind of where we're kind of at today. In 2023, top of 2023, the same exact thing happened with Bitcoin ordinals because we already had a community with the Bitcoin NFT community, the ordinal community, which Adam and myself had met Casey 3-4 months before ordinals popped off. We had him on our show. This is before Adam.
Who? Sorry, Adam who?
Adam McBride. He's another one of the people who joined Emblem Vault with me.
Okay.
And
I thought for a second it was another Adam, and I was like, okay.
Emblem's a small team right now. It's actually only 5 people. When Adam McBride and I joined the team, it was only 2 people, and that was in November of 2022. So we're punching a little bit above our weight comparative to our competitors who have raised $200 million and have 200-person teams and such. And in 2023, the Bitcoin community was like, hey, we did the same exact thing with Counterparty. Let's do the same thing with Bitcoin ordinals. So Bitcoin ordinals started trading on OpenSea through Emblem Vault, did about 3,000-4,000 ETH in trading volume.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. I didn't know you guys did that.
Yeah.
The ordinals have been on OpenSea through you guys. That's incredible.
That was in about February, early February 2023. So ordinals went from trading on OTC spreadsheets to trading with Emblem Vault. And I'll get in a little bit later why this becomes such a go-to solution. Thereafter, the same thing happened with Bitcoin stamps. Same thing happened with Litecoin ordinals. Same thing happened with ETH inscriptions. And also happened with bells here later in 2023. So this continues to happen over and over and over. Yes. And ending in 2023, to wrap this all up, we realized, okay, this has happened 5 to 6 times now where these NFT communities are using Emblem Vault, but there was an issue at the time where everything was trading on one smart contract. So you had Bitcoin NFTs, Litecoin NFTs, Namecoin. It was about 50,000 different NFTs from 15 different blockchains and 200 different collections, all trading on one smart contract.
Wow.
And it was just a horrible trading experience. It became that because of the success of Emblem Vault. So we actually decided we had to do something called a migration, where we had to basically build out our 2.0 infrastructure to where we had to migrate these 50,000 NFTs to what now is about 60 different smart contracts across 15 different blockchains. And it took us about a year to do. And that fast forwards us to about 3 months ago. In July, we launched Emblem Markets, which is a cross-chain NFT marketplace. And now we're kind of going into our next stages, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But Emblem has a crazy history where essentially it's been around. The starting community started on Ribbit Rewards in 2014. The idea of Emblem Vault was posted on Bitcoin Talk in 2016, and then it moved to Ethereum. And now we're beginning to expand back to all of these other chains and return home to Bitcoin and every other chain, hopefully.
So it really sounds like you guys have been the masters of accepting the technology and how technology is being received at the present moment and embracing it as it is. I think that sounds to me like you guys took a very intelligent approach, because during a lot of the friction that we've had in Bitcoin history, all camps have really been trying to prove that they were right and do things their own way. Whereas it seems like you guys have been just doing jujitsu in, okay, well, if this is what the market is providing, and this is where the audience is, and this is where we're making, we're creating markets, then we will embrace that. So I applaud you for that, man. That's really notable. And I'll tell you, I have yet to find a group like you guys. I can't think of another group like you guys that actually were capable and nimble to move around like that during this entire time, because a lot of the people who had a similar ambition to you guys that I remember, like, dude, I used to hang out in hacker houses where I would have OG Bitcoiners that back then were working on colored coins, which you mentioned, show up, and all of a sudden they became small blockers, like completely against those same projects that they were working for. And I'm not going to name the names because I don't need to
You don't want to start a war again.
I don't need to give these people any more clout. No, because they were on the opposite side of the argument in Bitcoin history to me. But I noticed that a lot of people made the mistake of just of not embracing the technology as it was and what the market was really accepting at the present moment, but rather they insisted on working on other networks. And
you could just call out the Lightning Network. It's okay.
Yeah, well, it's not just that. It's the astonishment that comes from being locked into one way of doing things. Yes, the people that promoted the Lightning Network, the people that promoted BSV and worked on BSV, the people that created and worked on Bitcoin Cash and what became Bitcoin Cash, all of these fractures within the community really isolated everyone from each other. And we are at a moment in time where everyone's coming back together, and you guys step in as the OGs, as if like, guys, we've been embracing everything that the market has been accepting throughout all of this chaos, we can call it, creative chaos. But the beautiful thing, and really what I want to get into with you is the notion that of what we understand as civilization, the idea that we can yield more, that we will yield more working together under the best, fastest, cheapest, most secure of networks, and we will working in isolation by ourselves. Where, how did you guys? So you guys came into Bitcoin with ordinals, and how has this experience been different from all of the other experience that you had in the past?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, we start with counterparty and then Bitcoin and then ordinals, but it's all relatively close. They're all closely modeled to be the same. The experience this time around through Bitcoin ordinals has a lot of sustainability. It has a lot more momentum than counterparty does. Although counterparty is now beginning to go through its own upgrades. Ordinals came and it has not stopped ever since. Immediately after ordinals are being inscribed, and you had this rush to inscribe, I think it was the first 100,000 or so. You had wallets and marketplaces pop up, right? You had Ordinals Wallet and OrdSwap, who are the big blocker guys from BSV, which tends to be a lot of the people in the ordinal space. So now you have loan platforms, and then you had VC funding, and then you had these different media shows, and then you had culture that became ingrained. Then you had culture wars, right? And once you start seeing these different layers play out through these different communities, that's when you know that it's going to be around for a long time. And Emblem actually, we've come to find out truly what Emblem is over the last, I would say, year or so. It supplies two different necessities initially. Emblem is really good at supporting very immature infrastructure. And so I'll kind of do a little bit of an explanation here. When you look at like traditional bridges, and I'm just going to use people in the space, it's not, an acknowledgement of they're better or worse or anything like that. But like if you look at like Layer 0, or if you look at Wormhole, or if you look at XYZ Bridge, these are bridges that go between Ethereum chains. They go through Ethereum mainnet to L2s. Now they're starting to go to a Solana. Both of these networks have virtual machines, right? And so the limitation of these, they're called cross-chain messaging protocols, is that they're limited to the virtual machine plugin. That's what makes Ethereum great, is that once you're on building on EVM, everything's pretty much plug and play afterwards. Where if you're building on Bitcoin, right, it has a lack of programmability, not complete, but there's still some based off of the opcodes. There's no plug and play system, so everything has to be custom made. But this is where Emblem Vault comes in, because what Emblem Vault is a tokenized wallet. And so it's essentially I'll use Bitcoin for an example. How Bitcoin NFTs are trading on Ethereum through Emblem is that it's a Taproot wallet inside of a ERC-721 token. So the crossroads of our infrastructure is wallets and tokens, where the crossroads of infrastructure for these cross-chain messaging protocols are virtual machines. So because that's where our limitation is, essentially we can plug into any network, we can plug into EVM, SVM, and UTXO based networks, because every crypto network, whether it's a layer 2 or an application or proof of work chain, et cetera, it has a wallet and it has a token network. So we found out that the first main use case for Emblem is actually to support immature infrastructure. So when we came in, and I'll use ordinals for an example. When ordinals are first being created, what was being created was assets, right? People were inscribing and creating NFTs, and this was before BRC20. But while the assets were being created on top of this protocol, there were no wallets, right? There was nowhere to trade these, and there was no type of, transferability or tokenization. So using an Emblem Vault, which is just a Bitcoin wallet inside of a token, users are able to suffice two things. They're able to deposit these assets into a wallet, Bitcoin wallet for ordinals, which didn't exist. And then they can trade these on a marketplace, which also didn't exist for ordinals. So they're getting basically steps 3 and 4 when a new protocol merges. You have a protocol merge, the assets are created, then you need a wallet, and then you need a marketplace. An Emblem Vault is basically steps 3 and 4 for any type of new blockchain network. And then what we found out after this is, okay, what happens once these ecosystems mature? What happens when there is a marketplace, when there is wallets, right? Emblem essentially, isn't as much needed, because, you can go use Xverse, right? Or I could go trade on Magic Eden. So then this is where Emblem goes into this more advanced stage, where it's like, okay, what is Bitcoin lacking? Oh, it's lacking DeFi, it's lacking NFTFi, it's lacking points and interoperability and all these things. So how about I take my Bitcoin puppets, right, or my node monkeys, and I could go take them to Blast, where I can basically make them yield bearing and farm them with points. Or what a bunch of users will do is they'll take high value node monkeys, like an alien node monkey, and they'll go lend against it or borrow against it on Arcade on Ethereum, because the liquidity pool is much higher on Ethereum DeFi than it is on Bitcoin DeFi. So we're in the second stage, we're looking to see, hey, what does this community need? And then how can Emblem basically allow them to access these more advanced type of markets? And this is where the community building comes in, because you have to know, what does the ordinal community need? What does the counterparty community need? What does the Ethereum NFT community need? And it's all different. Even if they're on the same blockchain, what Atomicals needs, right? What the Bitcoin SV community needs, what the Stacks community needs, or whatever, XYZ protocol that pops up on Bitcoin needs, they're all completely different. And so that's where we come in on the community building side, and to maintain those relationships to figure out what's needed.
Is Emblem Vault VC funded?
No, surprisingly not. Never been funded. We have talked, actually, and this has been a little bit of a friction point. We have talked with tons of VCs. We've talked with all of the exchange, venture capital arms. We've talked with a lot of the Bitcoin venture arms. It's been tough to explain what Emblem Vault is, and it's tough to get VCs to invest in something where they don't completely understand it. And then therefore, what I've also learned, which is somewhat of an ass backwards way of how the crypto industry works, once you have the product live, then basically the VCs don't have anywhere to speculate on, right? Well, you see like these companies that are getting $5, $10, $500 million venture or, capital allocations, there's nothing there. Like it's literally just an idea. Whereas if I go to a VC and say, hey, Emblem's done 200 million in trading volume, it generates revenue based off of vaulting fees, and we have 22,000 on-chain holders. they're now able to basically put a valuation on it and then determine that, hey, maybe this doesn't get the 10 or 20 or 100x that I'm looking for. Maybe this is a solid 50x, from XYZ valuation to where they put their capital on, but it doesn't hit the imagination of what they are looking for. That doesn't be said that, we're always looking for opportunities at the end of the day, whether it's through a token or it's through this traditional venture capital means. The industry is always changing. And I just don't think the interoperability sector is really hit the focal point, or you could call it, right, the meta of what the crypto industry is. Whereas, it's getting better. RWAs will help with that, real world assets, cross-chain bridges, wrapped assets, like with the Coinbase Bitcoin, and now you have wrapped Bitcoin and all these synthetic Bitcoin wars that are starting to go on. That's getting closer to this interoperability area being kind of in the prime centerfold, but I still think we're probably 1 or 2 legs up away from that actually happening.
When do you think we will start seeing signs of this maturing in the market?
I would say, you need a more of a mature Bitcoin asset issuance layer. So that's probably going to take another year or 2, possibly 3. And you're starting to see it now on Solana and Ethereum, where users they're mostly doing it through fungible tokens. You have people who are migrating their Ethereum assets to Solana through a bridge, right? Or they're taking their Bitcoin over to Solana, or they're taking their Ethereum tokens from layer 1 over to layer 2. And it's all happening through fungibles. But Emblem's biggest use case right now, or at least where it's commoditized, is NFTs. We can do fungible tokens, which we're going to be launching here at the end of the year through something called a Vault, which maybe we can even get into. But cross-chain NFTs is still even such a new concept that it takes a lot of work for us to basically negotiate on the user's behalf. Where, for example, we got accepted into the Arbitrum and Merlin grant programs, which is in the top Ethereum L2 and one of the top Bitcoin L2s. And so for us, we have to, and we go to these L2s and we say, hey, look, we have 100 million in TVV. That's total value vaulted. And our users are looking for something more advanced to do with their rare Pepes or their Bitcoin ordinals, right? Or their Bitcoin stamps. What type of ecosystem do you have to where we can plug these assets in a cross-chain way? And some of them will say, oh, we have lending platforms. Some of them will say, hey, we have gaming. Some of them will say, hey, we have this advanced, derivatives platform, or whatever the case is. And so that's on the Emblem side to kind of discover what those are and then pitch that basically to our user base to say, hey, now you can go and do other things with these NFTs that basically make them yield bearing, because now I can take a CryptoPunk on Ethereum and I could go farm on Blast. I could go farm on Base. I could go farm on Stacks with the same exact asset, which is something that's never been done before.
So as you're going through these conversations and you're mingling with the community, a very interesting encounter, I think, you've gone through, which is realizing that what we understand as L2s are now nothing more, nothing less than blockchains. So it's almost like we went full circle from looking for an ideal L2 that will help what I would call a crippled blockchain that cannot sustain the bandwidth. And now we are noticing that the best L2s are blockchains themselves, that are in themselves L1s that are more capable. What has been your experience with that? How has that shaped or not shaped or made you indifferent regarding this landscape?
It's actually a really good question as well. And this is kind of the current state of where it exists. There's a running joke in the Bitcoin community that everything's a Bitcoin L2, if you think of it.
Yeah.
A centralized exchange is a Bitcoin L2, right? Because you're plugging the asset into there. Solana is a Bitcoin L2, Ethereum. Or you have these, right? Or you have these quote unquote, right? You could even say an ETF is a Bitcoin L2, right?
Yes.
Because it's a financial instrument that's holding, millions of Bitcoin now at this point between all of them. And Emblem's always operated in this way that, hey, if XYZ blockchain doesn't get it done, then let's use these pieces from Ethereum, or let's use these pieces from Solana to ensure that the whole thing exists on chain, but it's across different chains. And for some people, that's kind of a hard no, mostly from the Bitcoin camp, where they're saying, if it's not on Bitcoin, then essentially it's not on chain. But we're saying, hey, yeah, it is on chain. It's just it's on Bitcoin and Ethereum and this L2 for this reason. And it has put us an advantage because it allows us to basically assess these different chains in different in a much more pronounced way, because we've done this a few times and now we kind of have a template on how to approach it. Vitalik actually had a really good presentation I think it was an Arbitrum conference this year, where he said that L2s are basically servers, but better. These L2s, specifically like scaling solution layer twos on top of Bitcoin or on top of Ethereum that are meant for different assets, they all become hyper specialized now. You have a few general purpose blockchain or L2s, right? Like Arbitrum, Base, and Optimism and Polygon are all kind of these like general purpose ones. Yeah, Base is even more just kind of like a Coinbase, on-chain Coinbase. But you have something like Blast, which is basically just specializing in kind of this like dopamine points casino, where it's all about, trading and gamification and things like this. You now have like the Bored Apes building their own L2, which is going to satisfy whatever needs that they need to be. You go on the Bitcoin side, you have something like Merlin Chain, which is an EVM based L2, but they call it a Bitcoin L2 because they're just focused on depositing Bitcoin assets, whether it's ordinals or stamps or BRC20 or runes or etc.
Or bitmap.
Or bitmap. Yeah.
I'm big about bitmap. Yeah.
I'm a big bitmap guy as well. I got to inscribe some on the block out, and I've been actually experimenting with a lot of the stuff that they do over at Merlin. I'm a big fan of it. But they're in a similar situation that Emblem is in. And for some people, it's hard to face this reality where they said, hey, EVM has this like incredible infrastructure that's already built. Bitcoin is not anywhere close to where we need to be. And if we're going to sit around and wait, it's going to be probably a year or two. Let's go build on EVM and focus on Bitcoin assets. And then, hey, when the infrastructure catches up, then we'll figure out if we need to migrate or fork or add in or whatever it is. But in the crypto space, the network effect is, one of the, it's one of the most strongest effects that you can have. If you take off with, adoption, it is really tough to beat the incumbent in this space. This is why Bitcoin has never been flipped. Ethereum's never been flipped, right? You go like Monero, which was the first privacy coin, has yet to be flipped in the privacy world. And it really just keeps going down, down the line for all of these different firsts to have, a lot of these strong network effects. CryptoPunks wasn't necessarily first, but it was the first kind of, it was in the first realm. It came in 2017 when the kind of NFT breakout happened, and it really hasn't been dethroned since.
There seems to be tension in the space right now because you very well explained the world that you as an entrepreneur have to deal with in present tense, with all these competing L2s and the fact that we have these incumbents. But the rise of layer ones that are multi-purpose, that are for general use, that have a protocol that is inviting for all types of innovation like Solana, have really begun to emerge. And it seems as if people are trying to marry both, is really what I'm looking at. They're trying to marry that experience of an all-encompassing blockchain and the experience of a large market cap network. Do you really think Solana will not be able to to flip Ethereum?
I think it's going to be tough just purely from a monetary standpoint. Like the users and stuff can definitely flip Ethereum because it seems to be satisfying what is needed right now. Just from a pure capital standpoint, once you start getting up into these, hundreds of billions of multiples, it becomes really tough to flip these. To move Ethereum from 500 billion to 600 billion is a lot. That's a lot of money, right? It's the same thing with like Bitcoin. To move Bitcoin from 1 trillion to 1.5 trillion. So it keeps getting stuck at like 70K and between 60 and 70K. Like that's a lot of money. You need more money to enter the space for that to happen. And from Solana's standpoint, it's going to go through a very similar kind of idea. It's just to me, crypto is a king of the hill game where these things are flipping each other. But it seems like once it gets up into the top 5, top 10, it becomes enormously tough to flip them. But from a user experience and from a metric standpoint, Solana is giving Ethereum a run for its money.
Yeah,
Actually,
100%. Yeah.
and there, you cannot deny that. There's somebody on our one of my friends is on the Emblem team named Chris. And back in 2022, he was telling me that this was going to happen, that Solana was going to give Ethereum a run for its money, and that Ethereum had basically lost its way because it's kind of playing two sides of the field. I didn't really believe him until, later last year in 2023, where I was like, oh, wow, this is actually happening. And it's because Solana, they just continued to build. They went through their own kind of troubles, and they satisfied a need, which was basically high TPS, low gas, right? High transactions per second, low gas fees. And the culture that's cultivated on Solana is more of a short attention Gen Z community. And I'm starting to see these kind of the blockchains differentiate as I talk with these different communities on it. Bitcoin is mostly boomers for the most part. I mean, everyone has Bitcoin, but the ones who continually promote Bitcoin is generally like older generation. I say boomers kind of lightheartedly, but generally the older generation. And the reason why is because it's the biggest name brand. It's the most simple to understand, and it's representative of gold, which is kind of what that generation has been buying, for the last 80 years or so. And when you look at Ethereum is mostly millennials for the most part. It's like me and you who are just hanging out, and a lot of millennials are the ones who are building for the most part. They're the ones that are building the Emblem Vaults, or we're building the layer twos, or we're building these different type of DeFi applications. I've noticed Gen X is generally the one who's like the VCs who are funding the millennials. And then Solana came in and they really just focused on the attention economy and the consumer applications, things that look nice, things that move really fast, and things that have high transactions, right? Like when you look at like TikTok and things like that, it's like very short kind of attention span. And that's kind of what Solana is doing here. And they filled that need. And it's really mostly the Generation Z. I say this as just a law of averages, who's hanging out on Solana. And when you look at kind of the broader scope of this, you begin to wonder, like, is there room for anything else, right? They're beginning to, everything kind of, all these chains have all these like generations that have become to form over it. And it's for me, it's really tough. That's why at Emblem right now, we're just focused on Bitcoin, EVM, which is all the EVM technologies, and then Solana.
Ever since ordinals, we've seen a reawakening in the understanding of what Bitcoin is. Now, no one can think or say intelligently that Bitcoin is just a store of value. We're looking at Bitcoin as a place where we can compute script, where we can have smart contracts, where we can scale on chain with a digital marketplace, with where the blockchain is now. We know it's possible for the blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain itself, to be the exchange because of the UTXO model that Solana and Ethereum does not have. So right now, we're seeing a signaling of many entrepreneurs in the acknowledgement that we can and we desire and we all want a UTXO Solana. Do you aspire to see a UTXO Solana yourself?
I have to say, there's a little bit of bias, but there is there's a few, competing blockchains who could fill this. Obviously, you come from the Bitcoin SV community. That's a technology that's been building, these different opcodes that could fill that. It does have a branding issue, which is we're curious to see if that'll ever overcome it. There's a new UTXO called Bell's Coin, which is also catching a lot of traction. It's also mirroring a lot of the developments that are happening on Bitcoin, but at an accelerated pace. You recently had something like Fractal popping up, and you start seeing these different people who are looking for this as well, right? The Solana of UTXOs. Dogecoin could have been that, although I think it's a little bit tough now because of the market cap and how the community's been around for a while. It needs some serious development updates. And I think there definitely will be. Overall, myself and the Emblem team, we're very bullish on UTXO chains, proof of work chains, and we believe it's a very underrepresented sector. And when you look at all of them specifically, even omitting Bitcoin here, right? You have like Bitcoin Cash, Dogecoin, Litecoin, Bitcoin SV, and Bell's Coin. Between
Radiant
all,
is also one. Radiant.
You have Cardano as well. And you look at these chains, and there's really, close to $40 billion in capital just sitting there. And they have, a lot of them have a lack of utility, but they're now starting to build these different communities on top of them. And I think there's going to be a lot more that are going to be created once people realize, once you have a winning fractal or you have a winning Bell's coin or whatever it is that comes next, that shows that, hey, we could do everything that Ethereum and Solana do. You'll probably see the pendulum swing from overweight proof of stake over the next 5 to 10 years to become overweight proof of work. Because to me, it seems like nation states, if they're going to do their own blockchain, I always thought it would be a UTXO proof of work chain, because then you can power your energy grid on top of that. Maybe it's too early for nation states to really understand that kind of dynamic.
I think I think you're ahead of that of the curve there. I think they're kind of dumb regarding these things, so they take their sweet time.
Yeah, that's just kind of how how it works. And from a business standpoint, from Emblem, we're essentially, we've essentially become the leader. We've been the leader since it started in terms of being this bridge for UTXO based assets, digital assets, whether it's the native layer, right? Like a Bitcoin, or it's the next layer, like a runes or BRC20 or an ordinals or stamps or whatever, to then go access Bitcoin L2s, go access Ethereum L2s, go access Solana. And there's nobody else really building in this space. And so our plan is just continue pushing forward in this and to continue becoming, that layer. You could call it the wormhole of Bitcoin, right? Or the layer 0 of Bitcoin. You just call it the Emblem Vault of Bitcoin. I just really try to explain it to people what vaulting is. And I think the toughest breakthrough here actually is being able to identify with the community, because I do believe that Bitcoin specifically, I have something called the village theory that I've wrote articles on before, where it's that, on Bitcoin specifically, you can have multiple fungible token winning standards. You can have multiple winning NFT standards because it is a non-standardized chain, right? There is no ERC 721 and ERC 20 that everyone uses. You have all of these communities that are building their meta protocols for XYZ reasons. And because the liquidity and the market cap is so high and dense on Bitcoin, you can have these small communities exist with 50 to 100 million in market cap and be completely content because they've satisfied whatever their needs are. And this will be very similar across a lot of these proof of work chains as we go on through these cycles over the next 5 to 10 years.
So can you explain that a little bit more? About your theory? Explain it a little bit better.
Yeah, of course. So when you look at, we'll use Ethereum as an example.
Sure.
When you look at Ethereum and smart contract platforms, they create something called standards, right? It's once somebody's figured out how to build an NFT, everyone on Ethereum now uses the ERC 721 standard because it's a smart contract and the tokens are on chain and you can put this logic in, and now it makes it simple for everything to kind of plug in together, right? There's no fragmentation. There's fragmentation between the L1 and L2, but there's no fragmentation between everyone who's deploying an ERC 721 NFT standard. But on Bitcoin, for NFT standards, you have counterparty, you have atomicals with digital objects, you have Bitcoin ordinals, you have Bitcoin stamps, you have, XYZ. Once OpCat, if it makes it, then you'll have the OpCat versions of these. So you have, 5 to 10 different NFT standards. But my theory is that all of these standards can coexist because the liquidity on Bitcoin is $1.3 trillion versus Ethereum's 400 billion. And some of these people are building for different reasons. The reason why stamps exist is their whole shtick is that it's unprunable, right? It can't be pruned by the miners. The Bitcoin ordinals NFT standard exists because it's supposed to be the most efficient for Bitcoin art, right? You put it into the the witness data. So your data is there forever. With Counterparty, it was created in 2014. So it was really kind of the first one to the party, and they created their version. And this will just continue to happen over and over. And all three of these exist. They're fine. They all have their own communities. And yes, one of them, Ordinals or Counterparty. I would say Counterparty actually has a higher market cap than Ordinals does, but Ordinals has much more users. And so you have these varying degrees of adoption, but they all three communities work fine. And so it's what I call the village theory, because they're all built different ways. None of these plug in together. And this is where Emblem Vault comes in and allows them to kind of plug in together. But with that village theory, this can then be applied to some of these other proof of work chains. I mean, on Dogecoin, you have Doginals, and then you have DRC20 and you have Dunes. I think there's like another standard that's being built. So you start to see all the same kind of ideas trickle down from Bitcoin to the other UTXO chains. And I just don't think it's going to stop. It's only going to accelerate over, the next decade.
So what is your thoughts regarding the great script restoration that is happening in BTC, where they're enabling all of these opcodes that were previously not permitted to exist on BTC? What do you think is happening there?
It's interesting. I actually, I'm not a developer. I don't have a developer background. I have been in this space since 2016, pretty much every day. And I can understand things generally to a conceptual level. And then working at Emblem and becoming the CEO, I've had a lot more kind of in the trench conversations with our developer to learn how a lot of this stuff works. The opcode thing is cool and interesting. I mean, you still have the whole political side of Bitcoin, where if you're going to get one opcode through, right, it's going to take years to do. That's what the Taproot wizards are trying to do with Opcat. Mm-hmm. But then you think of from human nature, where it's okay, once one big change has happened, right? Generally, a lot of changes will come much quicker afterwards because the community becomes a little bit more, accepting of it. But does that happen here on Bitcoin, right? Or does this like traditional Bitcoin maximalist view have a lot more power than the new kind of Bitcoin renaissance happens? But what you do have is experimentation now on Fractal and on Bell's coin. And I think Atomical's actually released an AVM that has all the opcodes essentially as well, right? That exists off chain, but you could use the indexer to use all these opcodes. So you're going to see all these blockchains, implementing the new opcodes on their chains, and people are going to experiment, and, we'll kind of see what happens. I see a future where you'll probably get multiple of these over the next decade, because once people kind of accept that Bitcoin's more than just digital gold, right? And it can be this, the most decentralized distributed ledger that ever exists. People are going to want to experiment with it. And also to the people who come late to the Bitcoin party, and you have the banks and different things like this who have just enormous amounts of capital, right? They're going to want to have their imprint on it as well. And so you'll probably get another type of culture war that happens kind of over this. But I think that's what makes it fun. You get the whole world who's sharing this one decentralized ledger. And as it grows to be bigger and bigger, there's going to be more conflictions. It'll be probably harder to make change, but honestly, the crypto space surprises me a lot. Sometimes the things that you think are going to be the most difficult end up being, the most simplistic, and people converge around it.
Yeah, especially when people have been building these things for over a decade elsewhere, right? And they can just easily plug and play within existing architecture. So, we're talking about infrastructure. Help me understand why it is that the market keeps choosing. And I know that market cap has a lot to do with it, but the market seems to be keep going back to a very stupid way of building things, like of using layers and pegging this to that. It's like, dude, the genius of what Satoshi gave us was, in my opinion, the ability for all of us to have everything within the that's affordable within that network. So if Solana allows me to do all of these things on chain, fast, cheap, and easy, why would I go to Ethereum? And why is it that people still go to Ethereum when a Solana exists? That, to me, I'm still trying to understand.
It's a community layer. It's really tough to defeat that tribalism. you can defeat like the negative version of it, but you know, some of the nostalgia and the memories that tie with it, the people who participated in DeFi Summer, the people who participated in NFT Summer, or those who were part of the ICO craze, like those are imprinted in our brains forever. And you just hope that it goes, you know, that Ethereum returns to that. I do think Ethereum will be fine in the long term, but also on the other side of this, you know, you have the memories from it, the cultural layer, which is people respect Vitalik. They don't want to give up on him. We're humans at the end of the day. On Bitcoin, you know it's going to be there. I think it's pretty much accepted. So it's always something that can return. There's probably a fear that, oh, what if Ethereum fails, right? I don't think anyone's really thinking that Bitcoin's going to fail at this point in time. And with Solana, you know, they're going through the next layer of it, which is the entertainment layer of it, right? People are having fun, you know, pumping, dumping meme coins, or building out this consumer app layer, or, you know, speculating on it, having, you know, low gas fees and having a lot of quick transactions. It's a part of the, you know, the experience that comes with the chain. With some people, when it comes to Bitcoin, you know, it's just potentially too slow for a lot of people. Like a lot of people don't like the 10-minute block times. And for many people, that's okay because, you know, it comes with that crypto trilemma of sacrifice, right? Security, scalability, and decentralization. And Bitcoin optimizes for, you know, security and decentralization, where something like Solana optimizes for, you know, scalability and security and that kind of aspect. Although, you know, they all are kind of still close to all three kind of edges of it. And it's just the human of it. I mean, at the end of the day, these are on-chain assets with off-chain shenanigans, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
So, what do you foresee for the rest of this bull run? How do you see the space shaping out? Will there be an actual breakthrough of one of these UTXO blockchains that people are talking about, like a Bells, like a Fractal,
I do think so.
or will things just remain the same?
I do believe I do give into the Bitcoin Solana barbell thesis, which I've been, you know, personally experiencing since this cycle started with ordinals. I would say that ordinals really started, and then it was meme coins, and then they've each kind of grown into their own thing. With Ethereum, it's really all been kind of, you know, L2 and restaking has really been the narrative over there, which I don't think really attracts a lot of the attention in terms of like the Twitter attention, right? Because most people who are talking on Twitter are either, you know, flexing their bags or they're doing podcasts and things like that. Talking about restaking is kind of boring. Although there is a large, you know, there is a large amount of capital being moved through like Eigenlayer and things like that. Will there be a breakthrough? Yeah, I think so. It's funny, we were hosting a show this morning and we were talking about Bells. Bells just went through their 3.0 upgrade, and, you know, there's still each block that's a minute or so, still only had 10 to 20 transactions in each block. So it's still, you know, super early. We had the Fractal team on our show on yesterday. I guess it was yesterday. And we're talking to them about building, right? They have a whole vertical stack. You know, Bells Coin's a little bit more decentralized. There's no pre-mine and everyone's kind of built it. Whereas Unisat, it basically owns the entire vertical stack of Fractal, and they've commoditized BRC20. And so they basically are the sole arbiter of what's going on over there. And therefore they could scale it a lot faster. But then it comes with these different trade-offs. And the one thing that I've learned in the space is you never discount what people come to crypto for. Some people come for art. Some people just want to make money. Most people just want to make money. Some people come here for ideological reasons, and you'd be very surprised at times the amount of people that gravitate to a specific application or specific token or specific blockchain because it represents your ideals. And even if they are accepting that they're going to make less money, it's just something that they prefer and it truly makes them happy. Just one kind of example here is when I started trading NFTs in 2021, I actually owned an antique store in real life in like 5-6 years ago. And there was this proliferation of what's called historical NFTs, which was in 2021, people were going back through these different blockchains, figuring out what were the first non-fungible assets that were ever created. Turns out it was on Namecoin in 2011. And through this time, that really resonated with me because I went from, owning and selling, antiquities in the real world to, owning and selling digital antiquities in the crypto world. And yes, yes, we made money and had fun. I could have just traded PFPs and made a lot more money, but to me, that resonated with me and it made me very happy and actually led me to Emblem Vault and being with the company today. And as I talk with these different communities, I actually find that this kind of situation, not in that context, but these situations of somebody stumbling on something very meaningful and then it ends up leading to like a career position or they end up becoming the developer of a chain or something like that. It happens a lot more than you think. And it's not just people speculating on PFPs and meme coins the whole time. So in terms of the innovation, it does seem like it's not happening as much. But the explosion that's happened on Bitcoin over the last 2 years, it's truly astounding. I think it definitely has a few years to go before it's mature, maybe 3-4 years. But it's catching up with Bitcoin's version of NFTs, Bitcoin's version of fungible tokens and experience and stuff like that to the rest of the world, just as Solana caught up to Ethereum quite fast.
Well, so with your experience with Emblem Vault, would you say that people really jive with the idea that on Bitcoin, the Renaissance, and the reason for the Renaissance is that we figured out a way to show the world that you can do all of this on chain. Does that still hold as much gravitas as it did when ordinals got started? Has it grown more that there is this awareness that having the asset on chain is the reason why this started in the first place, and it converged everyone back into Bitcoin to create these assets? Or did people go back, in your opinion, to the whole mindset of like, well, I don't really care if it's on chain or not on chain?
When ordinals first proliferated, and for that first year, I would say year and a half, I would say it was very much this like on-chain maximalist perspective where everything had to be on chain. The swaps had to be on chain. The asset had to be on chain. The ownership layer had to be on chain. What people eventually realized is that it's almost impossible to have every single thing on Bitcoin on chain. So the communities has definitely become much more accepting of taking different things and putting it off chain. And also off chain in a context of what does off chain mean? Is off chain an indexer on a server? Is it off chain of using smart contracts on EVM? Are you using an app chain, right? Are you using an opcode, et cetera? And ultimately, I mean, for ordinals itself, ordinals are not on chain either, right? Like the data is on chain, but the ownership layer is an indexer on a server. So, the Bitcoin doesn't recognize ordinals as an asset. And so inherently the whole entire thing, part of that is off chain. I like to say like with Ethereum, you have the token on chain and the data is off chain. Whereas on Bitcoin, it tends to be the data is on chain. The ownership layer is off chain for the most part. Maybe Opcat can fix that. And then you went through this phase, and I was actually part of a team called OmniSat, where we were trying to figure out how to build a DEX on Bitcoin and for BRC20. And you learned that there's not everything could be on chain. We kept running into the situation where, okay, you can do swaps, but the private keys to the LP pools, there's nothing that exists to put these LP or to put the keys to this LP pool, right, in a multi-sig or in somewhere on chain that's part of like a TSS system. And there's no way to decentralize it. So therefore the Bitcoin people, won't put their Bitcoin in it because it's, it's trust minimized or
with Bitcoin as it exists now.
Yeah.
Upon enabling these other opcodes, we'll be able to theoretically.
Potentially. I mean, with Opcat, what I hear is you could do a swap, but it's definitely a lot more data intense, which therefore means you can have less transactions. At the peak of the Runes launch, I think it was about 5,000 transactions per block, Runes transactions. And that's with sats per VBY over 1,000, right? So you're paying literally $90 just to get a transaction through, maybe. So you're saying, and with BRC20, when BRC20 first took off back in May of 2023, you got to about 800 sats per VBY, and that was like 1,200 or 1,500 transactions per block. So you're saying, even if you want to do things on chain, it's going to end up becoming what Ethereum was last cycle, where it's going to have to be high value. You're going to have to be moving,
Right.
5 to 6 or 7 figures of whatever it is through it. And everything else is going to be, offloaded to some degree. And people have definitely become more open to it. And this was something that Emblem and the Pepe community we had been doing since 2020. And for us, it's great because the more fragmentation, the better for Emblem, because we just have to connect all these things together. And I think it was a hard reality for a lot of people to realize that not all of it can be on chain. And so you'd go decide what ecosystem do you want. And it's actually, I think, become kind of full circle here, where the last cycle, and this has been in the Bitcoin nomenclature for a while, right? Not your keys, not your coins when it comes to centralized exchanges, where it was always, hey, let's take everything off centralized exchanges. Let's do everything on chain. And then they realize, hey, we tried to do everything on chain and now it makes it basically unaffordable, or I have to wait, 2 hours for a transaction in case everything goes up.
That's because
and so now people are going back, but people are now going back to trading on centralized exchanges all over again.
But that's because BTC is crippled when it comes to these things, right? Like,
Yep.
Let's be honest here. The reason why this whole on-chain craze started was because people, well, you can say it was intentional. You can say whatever the reason was. This guy named Casey showed us a way to arbitrage that on chain, which now opens up a can of worms where now a lot of people are like, wow, this is something really cool that I would have wanted to do in Bitcoin, but we were kept from doing. So now that we're starting to flex these aptitudes that were almost forgotten within Bitcoin, we have even the core devs of BTC getting ready to enable opcodes to give you more malleability and to be able to do more computations on chain. My personal opinion is that the core devs are positioning themselves for in the future, when there is if there is a competitive UTXO Solana, that they can just easily increase the block size in BTC, creating more space for computation, transactions, and making things cheaper and faster. I think that's exactly what's happening. I think that's unspoken because it goes against the thesis that the small blockers have promoted for forever. But I think that's it. That's the intention behind it, is to get ready for that, because there's something very special here, which is that indeed BTC in the state it is right now cannot be the UTXO Solana that we want it to be. But there is still a desire there that the market wants, even to the point that even Solana would like to have some sort of proof of work so that they can fulfill that. But people desire the hash power security. People desire that. People want to build around that, and people want to be around at least something that approximates the user experience to that. So it seems to me that we keep going back and forth, but everyone in the UTXO proof of work world is moving in the same direction, which is rediscovering Bitcoin. I like the word you use, renaissance. It's rediscovering Bitcoin. It's rediscovering that we could do a lot with Bitcoin with the infrastructure Satoshi gave us, and that the UTXO model allows us to do a lot more than the account-based model could ever give us. So in reality right now, everyone is rediscovering Bitcoin's computational power, and it's something that I see these entrepreneurs teaching by doing, and I want to know, what are your thoughts on Fleur? Have you heard of Fleur?
Yeah, actually, I had Harry and Randy. They pop in our show and they're explaining it to us. They're basically building for a Cat 20 future, or a LP Cat future, I should say.
So okay, so since you just got done speaking to them, could you explain what Fleur is here?
Oh man, yeah, I'll try to. They're a little bit giga brain. Basically, they're building, from my understanding, the way that they explained it, they're basically building a platform that is preparing for OP-Cat enabled blockchains. Like they already have, so they have Fractal on their marketplace. On Ordinal's wallet, you have Fractals and Bell's Coin and Bitcoin. And all three of these are pushing for OpCat. Fractal has OpCat.
We got caught off. So what were we? Do you remember what we were talking about?
So we were talking about Fleur and basically what the ordinal wallets you guys are building, or at least what they're planning for, which I think is very smart. At Emblem, we've built a very close relationship as well with them because they're a small, kind of scrappy team, just like us. And they're builders. They're not funded. We haven't been funded. And basically what they're doing is, if you look at their marketplace, they have a marketplace for Bitcoin, for Bells, and for Fractal. What is in common with all three of those, outside of being a UTXO, is that they're planning to add OpCat, or at least there's an initiative, right? Fractal has OpCat, Bells has OpCat and DevNet, and then Bitcoin, you have, right, the Taproot Wizards initiative to get it. And so what they're building basically is an infrastructure to allow all of these OpCat blockchains to interact with each other. And what Randy had said towards the end of our space yesterday was that once you kind of build it out, it's essentially kind of plug and play for the rest of these, which they actually told us was the same thing with their UTXO marketplace. It was like, once we got Bitcoin up, then adding, if we want to add Litecoin and Dogecoin and Bells and et cetera, it's pretty much easy to add all of that. So they're in preparation for it, which is smart, right? If you think about it from a builder standpoint, you're competing essentially with Magic Eden, some of these large marketplaces. So you need to basically be nimble and to be ahead and to build kind of a test bed for this. And I'd actually posted like a month ago or so that I suspect them, like that team, will probably dive into the DeFi components of it and build, the swaps and the kind of advanced trading mechanisms that you could do with OpCat, like bidding and partial bids and these kind of stuff. And if they can have that ready to go by the time that it hits Bitcoin, then, they'll be much further ahead of where Magic Eden and a lot of these other marketplaces are. And they could gain that traction, and then they can be kind of the leaders in the space. And with OpCat, that I've heard, outside of just fungible tokens like Cat20, there is permissionless bridging, which is, if you look at the end of the day, what OP-Cat is what's concatenation, which is essentially pairing two assets together. And from what I've listened to is that, if Bells has OpCat and Bitcoin has OpCat, you have to build the bridge on top of it still, but it makes it it reduces one layer of trust on the blockchain L1 layer, to where they can both interact, and basically you only need one thing to kind of pair it together. And there's other kind of mechanisms like vaulting and probably some other things that I'm not aware of, but it's very smart for them to do that to get ahead.
So I don't think they told you the alpha though, like the real, because I understand what they're doing because I come from the same world that they came from. I come from the forbidden, unmentionable place known as BSV. You want to know what they're doing? This is like,
Spell it.
It's huge, man. They're turning blockchains into exchanges. Essentially,
yes,
that's what they're doing.
Yeah, they call it MEX. I saw Jack Lu talking about it. MEX, right? Minor verified exchanges or something like that.
Minor exchange. So what does this mean? It means that within the UTXO model, which is obviously protected by proof of work, right now you have Magic Eden with their own specific order book. You have Ordinal's wallet with their own specific order book. You have Unisat with their own specific order book. What a minor exchange really means is that you turn the entirety of the blockchain, of the UTXO blockchain, into an exchange, where now when you have an exchange, is nothing more than a skin into the blockchain. So the blockchain ceases to be a place where you just transact, digital assets, but now tokens or fungible token like Bitcoin, but you're using now the exchange, the blockchain itself becomes the exchange, because now everyone shares the same order book, which is on the blockchain itself. So
and the miners are the ones that are verifying the transactions instead of the indexer. Yeah.
So it's like,
isn't that awesome? Yeah.
Dude, so you know what this is? This is turning Bitcoin automatically. This is what really is happening here. It's turning Bitcoin into a bigger exchange than Binance. And it's an exchange that no one can compete with, because you as an innovator, as an entrepreneur,
you're going to be incentivized if you want to drive traffic into your Magic Eden or into your Ordinals wallet or into your Unisat. It's not about having the best order book for the partially signed Bitcoin transactions, where the buyer and the seller have to come together and have to make that deal in present time. The buyer and the seller have to, but now the blockchain becoming an exchange means that we all share one order book that is open to everyone, and you as a business are now competing in providing the best skin into the blockchain. So it's changing the idea of a block explorer too, because now a block explorer is, you're looking at, there's going to be block explorers that emphasize Bitcoin as money, and there's going to be block explorers which are now the exchanges. The exchanges will turn into block explorers so like or.io. Or.io shows you all of the on-chain assets using the Ordinals protocol. Now imagine if we had an or.io, but it's a like a block explorer for all digital assets being traded live on chain. So this is, to me, is like the biggest innovation, because it now pushes the experience of a centralized exchange to the side, where we now have a competitive environment in providing for one another the best exchange experience, in truly having a real DEX. Like, we're turning blockchains into DEXs. And I think, and this is what's crazy, guys. What's crazy is that you can only do this on a UTXO blockchain. You can't do this on a proof of on an account-based model blockchain, because over there you're constantly sharing a global state.
Well, you need miners as well.
And the fact that you have an exchange protected by security of miners, dude. So what I'm thinking is about to happen is almost like a quantum leap in how we understand exchanges, digital assets, what a blockchain is about, what a UTXO blockchain is capable of, and what a proof of work exchange environment will be like. And we're going to enter into a competitive environment where we're entering into a completely different world, man. We're entering into uncharted waters right now, and it's almost happening quietly. And I don't think a lot of people understand what's about to happen. Which, in all sincerity, I think if this grows, I think you guys are positioned right now as Emblem Vault to embrace this change.
Yeah, we're all for it, man. At the end of the day, for Emblem Vault, the more innovation that happens, the more fragmentation, right? The new shiny things, the more blockchains, it's all bullish for us. I have this pinned post to top of my Twitter account. The mental model that I use for viewing crypto is a very similar mental model that I use to view Emblem Vault as a business. And it's that blockchains are countries. And within every country, you have cities and states. And these are generally on Bitcoin, they would be the meta protocols and the layer twos. Whereas on Solana, these would be like the dApps and applications, and layer twos and layer threes. These are cities and states and districts. And within these countries, they all have these things in common. They have assets, which would be your NFTs, right? And on Bitcoin, you have multiple ones, as we explained before, right? With stamps and ordinals, counterparty, et cetera. And on Ethereum, they have basically just one. You have ERC 721 and 1155. And then they have fungible tokens. Every country has this as well. Every country has a fiat currency. And then in some of the lower districts and the lower cities, there's a state-run or city-run or even organizational-run currencies as well, right? Like there's like gold-backed dollars and different things like this. And in this framework, when you look at it like this, you're like, okay, well, every country has a constitution, right? And this is basically how, or form of the constitution of how it's run. It has governance. And every blockchain has a different form of governance. And at some point, as all of these countries proliferated and grew, there was these teams, these ships, who came out and said, hey, we need to be able to move assets between these countries, right? In the early days, as unfortunate it was, those assets were slaves in slavery. Then it became agriculture. Then it became technology. Then it became, XYZ things that come across. And it's the same exact thing that's happening in crypto. And this is exactly how I view Emblem Vault is. Emblem Vault is that international shipping container. It's that plane. It's that ship. It's that boat. It's the helicopter. It's whatever you need to get asset A from the United States over to country B, which is somewhere in Europe, right? And what's in that asset? What's in that package? Just like with Emblem Vault, you can store unlimited amount of things in a vault. You can, because it's a Bitcoin wallet inside, I could put Bitcoin, I could put ordinals, I could put atomicals, I could put counterparty, I could put 400 Bitcoin inside of this one single ERC 721 and take it over to Ethereum. And then I can actually jump it and then go turn it into an SPL 721 over on Solana. And so that's what the interoperability space is to me, is just being able to move these assets across, whether it's a bridge, right? Like Wormhole, or it's a wrapped asset like wrapped Bitcoin, or it's a vaulting protocol like Emblem Vault. You're simply just moving assets across these chains. And the reason why I'm putting this reference in mind is that just like with America, as America proliferated and went through many internal wars, right? You had like the Civil War and the Independence Day War and the War of 1812 and et cetera. The country ended up building and going through these different cycles, the industrial cycle. Now we're in the information cycle. There was the agriculture cycle. And that's exactly what Bitcoin's going through, right? If Bitcoin gets opcat, then it'll be post-war after the feud and people decided that they wanted to put this opcode in. Then you're going to go through this golden age of experimentation and you'll get something big. And whatever comes out big from that is going to need to be shipped over to a new country, right? Because that could become Bitcoin's biggest export at the end of the day, just like America has a biggest export, just like Europe has a greatest export. And there's always going to be ways that you need to take these exports to a country, just like a country needs to import things. One final thing here is, in the current state of crypto, Bitcoin's largest exports right now are its assets. Bitcoin is a net export company. Bitcoin goes to centralized exchanges. The NFTs are being put into L2s. Emblem Vault's taking to Ethereum. Our biggest request actually is taking ordinals and runes to Solana. Is actually like by far the number one request.
Really?
Yeah, by far. And then Ethereum is actually a net importer. You have, I think it's like something close to $50 billion in TVL from other chains. People are taking, wrapped Solana, or you're taking, wrapped XYZ token, and you're taking it to Ethereum to participate in DeFi. Solana, I don't think's really got there yet, but it's starting to. You're starting to see some bridges where it's also becoming a net importer. And so maybe at this time, we're hoping at Emblem Vault that eventually Bitcoin can become a net importer. So then we could bring all the assets back home to Bitcoin. But I think with that, we're going to need probably a block increase for that to happen, if that ever happens. If not, then it'll probably just be specific use cases. And most of the L2s will be net importers over time.
Right on. If you would care, if you want, you can show us a demo. I would love to see a demo of Emblem Vault. I gave you the access to share your screen if you want.
Sure. Let me I'll show you both of our platforms.
Awesome.
And I don't have my wallet signed into this. I don't have my wallet signed into this computer, but I'll just show you kind of what we have, and it'll kind of put it all together. So
sure.
You can see here, excuse me, this is Emblem Markets. So this is our cross-chain marketplace. So this is actually built on Ethereum. That's why it says /Ethereum. It'll eventually be something else. Up here at the top, you see we actually have 0% marketplace fees. So if you list here, then you're not paying any fees altogether. We have a launchpad. For people who want to build applications on top of us, you can use our SDK. And then Home of Rare Pepe, which I'll get to. That's our by far largest collection. It's actually Bitcoin's largest NFT collection, and it's one of the top 3 NFT collections in the industry by market cap. Things around like $500 million. Recently vaulted, these are the assets that are being moved across chain. They're being vaulted from Bitcoin to Ethereum right now. So you can actually see that. The trending here, these are sales over the last 7 days. So you see Rare Pepe has 26 ETH in sales. Spells of Genesis has 17, which is also another Bitcoin collection. Mbells is a Bells coin collection. And Saratobi is also another counterparty collection. These are the recent sales. So you can see this just sold for 1 ETH recently. I believe that was actually while we were having this call. So you could shuffle through here. And then obviously this is the recently listed. So these are the assets that are being listed from Mbells, which is a Bells coin asset, to we have mostly Bitcoin assets here. So I'm going to go ahead.
Once a transaction happens and moves to Ethereum, now that asset, which was an original Bitcoin native asset, becomes an Ethereum native asset, or do they own it on Bitcoin?
Yeah, so the asset actually never leaves Bitcoin. What you're doing is, if I'm creating a vault, which I'll show you our minting platform here, and maybe it'll help, conceptually understand it. Basically, when you're taking something like a Bitcoin asset and putting it in a vault, you're essentially tokenizing the private key to that wallet. And then that wallet is then encrypted and sharded and tokenized on Ethereum or on Solana or, on XYZ chain. Just to show you a few more things, this is our application store. So Televault is something that's being built on top of us. It's a cross-chain UTXO bridge. So we're taking Bells coin to Ethereum as an ERC20. Then we'll do Pepe Cash, which is a hot request from Counterparty, which was like one of the first, I think it was the first meme coin really on Bitcoin. It was from 2016. And then we could do things like Bitcoin and Litecoin and Dogecoin, et cetera. And right now, there's currently no way to take these UTXO assets take these UTXO assets to Ethereum in a completely on-chain manner. You can do wrapped Bitcoin, where you basically send Bitcoin to BitGo, and then they custody and give you a token. But there's actually no full way to do it. So this will be the first time. So here you can see kind of our collections over the last 30 days. You see Rare Pepe has 90 ETH in sales. The top 5 here are all Bitcoin sales, Bitcoin collections. And then you have an Mbells, which is Bells coin. Twitter Eggs, this is a name coin collection. ETHscriptions, that's its own protocol, ETHscriptions. And then these are some of our other vaulted collections that don't have much trading volume there, but have had trading volume in the past, right? Like cursed ordinals and etc. So going over here, I'll show you kind of the collections page. So this is our top one. There's almost 24,000 vaults that exist here on the marketplace. You can sort by whatever collection that you want. And this is all aggregated. So what is that? So what that means is that it'll show listings across OpenSea, Magic Eden, LooksRare, etc. So this has been a popular one recently with Trump Rare, which is right. It's one of the first. I think it's like the third ever Rare Pepe, third or fourth.
Oh wow!
And so you can see right now the current price is 2.80. There's an offer. Here you can see there's 54 owners and 67 vaulted. You can click here. You can see all the owners. We also have something that's called the inside the vault view. This is native to Emblem Vault. So because Trump Rare is like an ERC 1155, it's semi-fungible. It's kind of like baseball cards. There's multiple copies of it.
Mm-hmm.
Here you can see it says this vault's backed by 66 Trump Rare. That means there's 66 of this card has been vaulted. And here you can actually click on the emblem ID and it'll take you inside of the vault of any of these assets, which I'll show you here in a second. And then the Explorer will take you over to the Counterparty Explorer and it'll show you the wallet that exists inside of these. And so just as simply, you come down here and you could just see all the different trading volume that's happened with this card and then all these listings that are on OpenSea. So this is what Emblem Markets, we call this our vault trading an application store. So it's just basically a marketplace with an app store. If you go over here to vaulting, this will take you to Emblem Vision, which is our minting platform. Can you see that? Emblem Vision. It's
Yes.
it's blue. Okay.
Yeah.
So we actually just launched this new version. We just launched this a few days ago, actually. So you'll be probably the first to see this. It's in what we call public beta. I'll show you kind of what our old one looked like. So this was just to show you kind of the upgrade that we've had. So Emblem.finance, this is our V1 minting platform. This we had for about 4 years, since 2020, where you basically come in and you can mint. We just upgraded to this a few days ago.
Wow,
And this
you
is
guys
going to
put a lot of work into this.
a lot. And so
Wow.
it's going to get a pretty big facelift here. We're going to have to match it to Emblem Markets and stuff. But these are all the networks that you can vault inside. So all of these networks here, you can take to Ethereum right now. Tezos, Stacks, Polygon, Solana, Monocoin, Bitcoin Cash, Arbitrum, Bitcoin Ordinals, etc. And what we've done here is there's 3 different types of collections. We do have to simplify this a bit. But essentially here, what you're doing, I'm going to do the project one because it's easy. You're going to come over here and pick a collection. You could pick like something like Bitcoin Punks, which is an ordinal, or I'll come down and pick something. I'll do Rare Pepe just because it's the most popular. So you pick Rare Pepe. There's 1,774 different cards. So you're going to have to type in whichever one that you want. And what you're going to do is you're going to come in and you're going to hit Create Vault. And so I'm not going to mint this, but we'll kind of just go through the process. So I could just simply show you kind of what it looks like. So once you hit Create Vault, what it's telling our system right now is, okay, Rare Pepe is its own smart contract. So it's saying, okay, I need a vault specifically for Boys Club, which is here. And it's this Rare Pepe Series 10, Card 2. And you'll see here some information: view seed phrase, backup vault, delete vault. You only need this once you mint it, because I'm going to show you down here. So down here, you see this is just the description for the card. This is the information for the card, like it was just created on October 2nd. This is my wallet address, the network for Ethereum. So if I wanted to create something like a vault on Solana, it would say network Solana. Here is the important part here. You can see here it says this vault is empty, right? So basically I created a shell of a vault. And so I have to load the vault. And so basically I have to take a Boys Club card and send it into this vault. And how I do that is this deposit address. This is this Bitcoin wallet. This Bitcoin wallet here, you basically send the Boys Club Pepe to this wallet. And once the transaction's cleared the mempool, it'll show up here and it'll say balances, or you'll see the asset inside. I'll show you an example. The attributes will change. It'll show the Pepe attributes, and then you'll be able to mint it. And then you go through the minting transaction, which is a $20 vaulting fee. That's our vaulting fee, $20. We do have a discount program where you could get this down to $10, and then you have to pay the gas fees. But I'm going to show you kind of what it looks like once you've minted it. So here, this is the My Vaults page. These are all the vaults that I've created on this wallet specifically. And you can see the different states of it. Some say created, some say minted, some say unvaulted. Unvaulted is where you want to basically take possession back of the asset that's inside, and you want to, import the private key into whatever wallet that you choose. But to show you, this is what a minted vault looks like. So as you could see here, it says unvault, view seed phrase, via backup vault. And see here, there's actually a balance inside. So this shows that this Rare Pepe is inside of this vault. And you can actually click here and it will take you to Token Scan, and it'll show you the owner, and it'll give you all information about the Rare Pepe itself. This is Token Scan. This is the Counterparty Explorer. And you can see these attributes here. And then on marketplaces, drops down. OpenSea looks rare. These loan platforms, so if you want to go lend against it on Arcade or NFTFi, you just click it and it takes you directly to the loan platforms. And we have plans to expand that area down there to I want to take this vault to Solana. I want to take it to Blast. I want to take it to Stacks or Merlin or etc. And as more options pop up for these assets, we're going to include these type of things. And now, one final thing here. I'm not going to go through this process, but let's say, okay, I bought this drone Pepe and now I want to take it off Ethereum. I want to go back to Bitcoin. You just hit this unvault button. And once you hit the unvault button, you're going to do a gas transaction. And what it does here is it burns the NFT itself, the token asset that it's attached to, and then it'll show you the seed phrase to the wallet that owns. It'll show you the seed phrase to this wallet that owns this drone Pepe. And the reason why that process is set in place is for a very specific security reason. So let's say, right, because these are tokenized and encrypted private keys on Ethereum, it would be very bad practice if somebody could see the seed phrase while they're still able to trade the token on OpenSea or on Emblem Markets.
Of course.
So what we have to do is have them burn the NFT itself, so then it's non-transferable, and then on their account on Emblem Vision shows them the private key to this vault, to then that they can do whatever they want with it, import it into XYZ kind of wallet. And so here are the final two things we have here. The activity page. This is activity that's across the entire Emblem network. I do believe this does need to be fixed and patched. There's a few bugs with this, but this is basically showing you all of the vaults that are being created and stuff across the entire Emblem network. As we add more networks, these will be different colors, and you can actually sort by different collections here. And the one final thing we have here is our leaderboard, which this is actually active and real. So our top holder has 1,400 vaults, and total vaults minted. We have 2 people that have minted over 1,000 vaults, and then unvaults. These are the ones that have been burned. And so we show all of this because for us, if you want to mint assets into the ecosystem or unvault them, it's your prerogative. We want to support and try to treat everyone as equal, whether you're staying in the ecosystem or whether you're not. One final thing to show you here, kind of just some historical stats for your community. This is the dashboard, Emblem dashboard. So you could see here, 154 million in trading volume, 75,000 trades. We have 22,000 holders across all of our collections. You come down here, you can see most of the volumes happened on OpenSea. This is kind of where the orders come from. The one crazy stat I'll show you here is that Emblem Vault. I don't know if it's still on here or not. These are our V2 collections. I'll show you up here. I talked about this briefly. So the monthly sales volume, this is our Emblem V1. This is why, remember I told you 2021, there was like a bunch of big candles, 40 million in trading volume. Wow. In July right here, we ended up doing migration and starting to move our ecosystem over to V2 collections. And so you could see here, June of 2023 is when we started deploying our new collections. And you can see now it's been kind of up and down as we've been adding more things to these different collections. And dude, it's been a crazy, crazy ride. Wow. Look at here. This is what really most proud of. It feels like
you're just getting started too.
Look at this. So Emblem has generated 75 millionaires in its history. So the most profitable trader has made almost $10 million. And you go down this list and you could go over there's 25 on each one. See, 1 million. There's been literally 75 people have profited over $1 million trading vaults. And it goes even much higher, right? So it goes to you can say it's literally hundreds of people that have profited 6 figures using our collection. And this is what we're most proud of. And it just goes to this idea that it just goes to this idea that, hey, if you're accepting of what the blockchain ecosystem is showing you currently, and you're not afraid of, moving outside of that tribalism, there's a lot of opportunities simply just by going and accessing something that's on the other side, and to the benefit of the counterparty community, the ordinals community, and a handful of these other ones. They saw the vision. That's why we trust the Pepe community like a lot. And the Bitcoin community is they had a need. They needed to find liquidity and they needed to trade. We supplied that. And it just becomes this, this give and take kind of relationship where, we give them something, they give us something, they give us trust, right? We give them tools. And I hope it doesn't change anytime soon. I don't think it does. But as everything expands and, people end up being able to trade all these assets on chain, as we discussed, what happens when you have a decentralized, NFT marketplace on Bitcoin, right? What the Rare Pepe community or whoever, Bitcoin ordinals, they essentially don't need us as much, right? But then whatever comes from that will need to be moved off on chain, or users want to take their asset to these different blockchains, to these different countries, to be a tourist for, XYZ reasons, just like we do in the real world.
So I have to ask you, do you have any competitors? Is there anyone else doing this?
It's actually quite crazy. In the NFT interoperability space, there's really virtually no competitors. In the fungible token space, it's quite there's big competitors. So I would say,
wow, interesting.
I'll kind of label it in two different buckets. Fungible tokens,
wrap Bitcoin, you have wrap this, wrap that. So yes, you're right.
Yeah, so you have that, right? But I would say our biggest competitors are probably, I'll go on both sides of this just because there is no other vaulting and interoperability vaulting solution. This is like a completely custom kind of thing that's been done. On the cross messaging side, you have Wormhole and Layer Zero. These are probably like the two most popular. They're called cross-chain messaging protocols. Both of these teams have 200 and 250 million in funding. They both have hundreds of people on their team. And these definitely, they definitely have a grip on the, cross-chain bridging, swapping, base tokens for Ethereum tokens, etc. But again, as I discussed at the very beginning of the show, the limitation they have is virtual machine, right? They can't interact with UTXO. There's no way because they've built their whole system on smart contracts. Maybe they figure out a way to do that, which is always entirely plausible. Right now, they have no way to do that. On the other side of this, we have had some NFT competitors begin to pop up recently. More specifically, you have ICP, I would say, Internet Computer, has started popping up recently. They partnered with like the TAP protocol, and they're building subnets for these different Bitcoin protocols to basically take ordinals or BRC20 or whatever to these other chains as well. I do think what they're missing is a few things. Is 4 years of community building. The TVL is really tough as well. We have over 100 million in TVL, which becomes really tough to get that type of adoption. And we are an interoperable highway. You can take your Rare Pepe vault, move it to Solana, move it to Blast, move it to Bitcoin, etc. in just a single gas transaction. Where these subnets are generally a little bit limited. It's one subnet equals one protocol. So the interoperability there is a little bit limited. And I do suspect the interoperability space to continue growing. Just to kind of wrap this up here on this section, I view the interoperability space as the same or even net bigger than the international and domestic shipping industry in the world. And I've done a lot of research on this, and the international and domestic shipping industry accounts anywhere from 5 to 10% of global GDP. So you're saying in the real world, the potential market size is, it could be in the tens of trillions of dollars. But what we know in tech is that when there's a disruptor, it generally trounces the previous competitor, just like Amazon trounced, UPS and the postal service. It'll be the similar thing here where the interoperability space will trounce Amazon and kind of the limitations there. So I suspect this industry to be in the tens of trillions over the next, 20 years or so. And it's tough to predict what happens there. But to me, I just know this industry is going to continue to grow. And it's literally it's very, very early here because most people have never even heard of this stuff.
No, it's like we have many different technologies merging together. So we have like Fleur is showing the way to have an on-chain exchange, which is only possible on UTXO blockchains unless something like Solana were to do something really crazy. They've been trying to do cool things on Solana, but you have to understand that the Bitcoin renaissance comes with a learning curve, and everyone is learning to program Bitcoin and to use the UTXO model and to program script. It takes time. And within that comes the awareness that we can have a social network, that we could turn Bitcoin into a social network. So Bitcoin becomes, or a UTXO blockchain becomes a social network that is an exchange itself, an on-chain exchange where the miners run the exchange, where social media of the future and exchanges of the future are nothing but skins into interacting within the blockchain. So yeah, this is going to grow a lot. And people have to ask themselves, well, why is it why is it better done on a blockchain that is UTXO and proof of work and not elsewhere? Well, it's because there's a security aspect and there is the interoperability and interconnectivity that comes with that topological design where we're all most interconnected. It's a network topology where we're most interconnected with each other, having the opportunity to be faster, cheaper, and most secure with proof of work. So, these are like latent realities that people in crypto haven't really embraced or acknowledged fully because they've been supplanting the reality that the Satoshi design gave us with, in my opinion, lesser versions of that and have had to cope with it. But overall, I think that this growing awareness is inevitable and it's coming faster than we know it. I think to me, if you were to ask me, Jake, a year ago, Raf, a year from now, we're going to be talking about OpCat and having miners as running the exchange of exchanges on chain through OpCat. I thought, I mean, that to me would be really far ahead into the future because back then people would even laugh at me when I would tell them like, dude, now that this ability to have fungible tokens on Bitcoin is possible, we're going to have DeFi. People thought I was crazy. And then we had Liquidium. And now we have all these other DeFi applications come out in Bitcoin. And everyone, now it's second nature. Oh, yes, it makes total sense. It makes total sense. But what I'm telling you is now that I would say within 6 months, this could be a normal conversation of saying, yeah, we're having a social media experience plus an on-chain shared order book across the whole space for every UTXO blockchain with social media like interfaces. That's going to be like, yeah, it's going to be like a normal experience for all of us. But definitely what you are doing is very unique. And I want to know if, so Emblem Vault, you guys are a bridge. Where does that bridge exist? Do you guys have it all happening within your own servers or are you guys using one specific blockchain?
No, we're using many of them. So there are,
okay.
Yeah, there's a handful of components to this. There's like this key management component, which we use. Our new version, Emblem 2.0, uses something called LIP protocol, which makes the vaults non-custodial, which means that Emblem has no participation in the key management. In Emblem 1.0, right? So like when you mint the vault to Ethereum, basically what's happening is you're taking that seed phrase to that Bitcoin wallet and you're encrypting it and sharding it. And sharding it means that you basically cut up in a little bit of pieces and you have a node network basically hold all of those pieces to it. It's called TSS is what it's called on Ethereum. threshold signature scheme. In Emblem 1.0, Emblem was one holder of many pieces to this like private key. In Emblem 2.0, Emblem becomes no layers to it, or no holders. So the vaults essentially become non-custodial because all the keys are encrypted and sharded across this very complex network. I highly recommend looking into Lit protocol. It's quite wild how it all works. And from the other side of it, so if there's no key management, right, that basically removes all of the storage there. Then it's okay, where do the tokens exist? Well, then the tokens exist on whatever network you're minting it on. We haven't released our Bitcoin product yet, but the first one's going to come out through ordinals. So you'll have the private key. So if I want to take an Ethereum asset to Bitcoin, we basically do it through ordinals. And so you'll basically inscribe the name or the image on the ordinal. The private key will be attached to Bitcoin. We're going to use Lit protocol again to store the keys to make the ordinals non-custodial, right? The ordinal vaults non-custodial. And they just exist like that. So you'll be able to trade your ordinal that holds a CryptoPunk inside of it, and you'll trade it on Bitcoin however you want. And it becomes complex, but everything is there now. And so Lit protocol has helped us a lot in terms of upgrading the decentralization. Our 3.0 emblem, which we're already theorizing and building out, is actually decentralizing the vault, the vault activity layer. So I guess like vaults being minted, vaults being unvaulted, vaults moving across chain, and then whatever advanced transactions come. And that'll involve a token where you basically will stake the token. If everything goes right, you'll stake the token, and then you'll participate in validating the creation of all these vaults, which then you earn, XYZ things because of your participation in decentralizing the network. So every new version that comes out, Emblem gets to decentralize another layer, which is really exciting. It's actually taken a lot of theorizing, a lot of thinking. I've been with the company now. Next month will be 2 years. It took me almost a year to really figure out what the hell was even going on here, to figure out what is it, right? Before Adam and I joined the team, there was 2 people on this team. It was quite chaotic. These 2 people had done over 100 million in trading volume, and it took us a while to figure it out. I figured out it's an interoperability protocol that has nothing else like it in the entire industry.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that I could see you guys doing billions in trading.
That's the goal, man. That's the goal.
I'm like, you look at something like Aave, that did like 40 billion, so you mentioned briefly how you see the space growing of digital assets. And how do you see it growing? Do you see it growing by incorporating corporate solutions, like boomer corporate solutions, or do you see it growing by what a lot of degens are calling the imagination economy, expanding even more?
I would say it's mostly the imagination economy. When you look at kind of the history of how crypto's unfolded, it's generally been one individual, one dev creates a new protocol that expresses their imagination and creativity, and then everybody else begins to pile and speculate on top of it, right? This happens with Counterparty, with Bitcoin, right? With Monero, Ethereum, ordinals, right? Everything gets all these layers on top of it. And generally what fails to hit, or what's been the laggard actually, is taking the traditional world and trying to put it on chain, right? RWAs are kind of have traction now, even though they've been theorized for 10 years. Tokenizing equities and securities has been an idea since the inception.
Right.
That's still like kind of there, hasn't really been done in practice. But alongside the imagination economy is the one that tends to take off. And at the end of the day, when you look at the social layer of it as well, you see, Web2 celebrities trying to come into crypto and just fail horrifically. Whereas those crypto natives who built their brand and trust from everybody else are the ones that tend to succeed. And even so much that the Web2 celebrities or traditional celebrities have to approach and work with the crypto natives and influencers to find any sort of legitimacy in the space. So to me, imagination and creative economy overpowers the traditional and by magnitudes.
Wow, this is fascinating. As you were talking, my own creativity started spinning. I came up with an idea that I'm going to share with my community, and maybe we do something fun, because these technologies are to be, one thing I like talking about you, Jake, is that you don't take this thing serious. Like, you emphasize fun. And I think that allows you to remain nimble and able to pivot back and forth. And 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 maybe it's me in my indoctrination, government school indoctrination, that took away a lot of my creativity as a child. And maybe I'm the one that struggles to see how is it that we can express more creativity, because there's two hurdles, right? The first hurdle is the fact that we come from a debt-based system where people are living off leverage, they're leveraging off debt, and it's just a vicious cycle of debt. And we have people that have a hard time, especially with the deflationary of monetary supply, to spend money on things that are quote unquote fun. If we do go through a sort of a recession, which a lot of people are predicting, less and less money will be coming into something that is experimental and collectibles for fun. There's that challenge. And the other challenge that I have is that within that desperation of people trying to capitalize by the use of crypto, we have this whole degen phenomenon, which turned Bitcoin and crypto into a large casino where people are looking to make a quick buck. It seems to me as if, and I could be wrong, I really want to understand what your perspective is on this. I feel as if this is somehow backfiring on the adaptability of this space, because I see a lot of people getting burned, and there's also an oversaturation of activity. They're constantly trying to sell you a new meme coin, and now there is even a famous speech that happened in Token 2049 that I'm pretty sure you saw, where this guy was up on stage saying that now everything should be looked upon as a meme coin. Everything in crypto is a meme coin. Forget utility, and so it begs for me to question: are we at a point in time where this paradigm has reached its ultimate conclusion, which is one of oversaturation? Or are we just now barely about to break through into another paradigm of a lot of abundance? Like, where are we?
I do think we are overweight meme coins. I do think they'll continue to grow, and that sector is now quite established. But I am somewhat still bullish on utility coins. I do think the utility coins, though, are going to change. And I think the lack of, you even call it lack of creativity for utility coins that were promised in 2021 and 2020 through DeFi, the DeFi utility coins that were governance, right? And some, right, these tokens are going to power these systems, to the utility tokens of the NFT space in 2021 that were, token gating in communities, getting you into events, right? You get to go to this restaurant, all these things. 99% of those failed horrifically, and a lot of people got burned. And so I think because of that, a lot of people found solace in meme coins, because they said, "Oh, these meme coins don't have any promise." And so therefore, right, we still get the community benefits of NFTs, but we don't have to worry about a founder or a leader giving us these empty-handed promises that we know they can never fill, while they still get rich and profit off of the minting, right, of those assets. And so now the pendulum this cycle swung completely the other way, to where now I do believe Murad, I believe that's who the speaker was, that their meme coins are going to continue to grow. And I think tokens now are definitely looked at in a different way. But I do think utility tokens have to be reimagined to represent a more honest and authentic version of what they actually are. Utility tokens are generally, they're a component of the overall ecosystem. And this is actually something that we've had years of conversation at Emblem Vault about is, once we enter we're calling it the expansion program, that we're going to be starting here in the next quarter, is, Emblem's this very complex system. How do we introduce a token that offers incentives to the community while offering rewards on the other side of it, but still can introduce speculation into the ecosystem? And so we have a lot of ideas around it. I do think you have to, be real or be, straightforward to what it is, right? Is this going to be the next Bitcoin? No, absolutely not, right? But will it be a token that has a lot of benefits from it, right? I'm speaking specifically for utility token, and like we'll use the Emblem utility token as example. Is this going to be, the decentralized money, right, of the ecosystem? No. What we've learned is that people want to mint vaults with Bitcoin if they're minting a Bitcoin vault. They want to use Ethereum if they're minting an Ethereum vault. They want to use Solana if they're minting a Solana vault. So then what can the token be used for, right, in an ecosystem? A lot of times the communities and protocols shouldn't have a token. But if you do introduce one, and if you have, good marketing and good product and good tokenomics, that'll really propel the ecosystem to, astronomical levels. But the token always has to come last. It needs to come in a mature environment to where the incentives and the hype and the trust is already there with the community. If you're just starting off and making all these promises, it's not going to work. And I do think that it's going to start swinging back the other way from meme coins to, I would say, a more even level, to where you're going to start seeing these DeFi, NFT protocols start adding different types of use cases to the token. And it'll be a slow and gradual build. I think probably the bottom of these utility tokens is now, and you'll probably start seeing some pop up over the next 6 months to a year. Hopefully Emblem is one of those that's on everyone's radar. And eventually, whatever the winning use case is, you'll see that adopted by a lot of protocols. And then people will begin to expand on what these other use cases are. And then eventually, we have this conversation 2-3 years from now. And we're going to be like, how did we ever doubt utility tokens, right? Like these are like, these things are make these protocols astronomically more fun. It gets the community on your side because now their incentives are aligned with the builders, and then there's positive benefits for it. But at the end of the day, the users need to use the protocol for a use case other than speculation. And so this is why we think Emblem Vault is in a good position to have a solid tokenomics for our future utility token, is that users have been using our product for 4 years without speculation. Like they're actually using it to find liquidity. Hence, there's 75 people who've profited over $1 million using it. And so they used it under their own accord. And so there's actually an actual authentic community there, who hasn't just been hanging around because they're points incentivized, right? Or whatever this, initial rewards are. Like you see with a lot of these other protocols where they incentivize people to come to their protocol, lock their assets, they get a token. And then once they can unstake, everyone just leaves the ecosystem and dumps a token, right? So we've moved past that in our ecosystem, and we hope a lot of other projects who launch utility tokens really kind of think about it in this way. And I have had some conversations with some founders about different types of use cases that you can introduce that don't necessarily have to be speculative, but can be positive and reinforcing for everyone that's participating.
Like what? Could you give us some examples?
Yeah, I mean, some simple ones you can do is things that offer like discounts to the system. Things you could do like we call this bucket premium services. I won't give all of them, but based off of your protocol, right? What are the advanced subscription things that can be offered, right? Just like when you sign up for a subscription service on Netflix or your favorite SaaS company, the different levels that you can buy for monthly subscriptions is simple things that you can introduce for utility. If you're a holder of this, you get to mint more vaults in this area, or it's cheaper here, or you get these premium services or their API credits, right? Like there's, a dozen or 24 things that you could do, but it really is dependent on whatever your protocol is doing. Like the utility for Emblem Vault is not going to be the same utility for Aave, which is not going to be the same It's not going to be the same utility for synthetics, which is a synthetic protocol, which is not going to be the same utility token or utility and use cases for pump.fun. You need to know, what your users want, but more specifically understanding what your power users are doing. And that's kind of the people that initially you want to target is those like I showed you on the leaderboard, those two people who've minted over 1,000 vaults, or that guy who owns 1,400 vaults. But, scaling that back to, anybody who owns over 100 vaults or is minted over 100, like we should be targeting those people and figuring out what they want and what type of features they need. And then you can then start adding utility based off of those requests.
Awesome. So is there a KYC process to use Emblem Vault?
No KYC, no.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, completely on chain. I mean, you can literally go vault. You can go vault cryptocurrencies. You can vault NFTs. Obviously, you can still track it on chain to see, hey, this person's depositing this asset into this chain. And we could do things. There used to be like private emblem vaults, and we have things like that we will introduce back through our, utility kind of aspect. And to us, it's a very superior to me, it's a very superior type of technology. I'll give you one kind of cool idea that we could do here. Is that I have this big idea of, I'm very big on time locked vaults, which we're going to be releasing pretty soon through a number of products. Basically, you can lock these assets inside of a vault for X amount of time. And so you can essentially create on-chain futures, Bitcoin futures, in this way where if I deploy a smart contract and I only allow you to vault 1 Bitcoin per vault, but then I allow you to time lock this Bitcoin to X block height, a month from now, 10 months from now, whatever. If I lock this Bitcoin and I say this unlocks at block 900,000, which I think is like summer of next year, people could trade this vault speculating on the value of Bitcoin, but the asset, you can't actually claim the asset until the summer of next year, which is essentially a futures contract, but it's actually backed by the Bitcoin itself. So you can do a lot of different things with Emblem, and we're trying to grow towards that way outside of just being, hey, move this NFT to this chain. It's really insane the things that you could do, but a lot of that stuff will come as we expand, as we have a token, as we introduce all this utility, and as people, participate and really understand the power of things you could do here.
That's so funny because I know people that have played with like time locking, and I know people that have locked up coins for like 100 years
on accident. Yeah,
no, on purpose, or for
on purpose,
the last block, and they send a message into the future. Like people are just funny, man. They were kind of nuts with locking. I think locking is a feature yet to be discovered in most crypto. And
this is essentially tokenized time locking, right? So essentially it's tokenized staking, if you think about it. And so I'm really bullish on it. I have seen some conversations popping up about different opcodes to do time lock on Bitcoin, but that's more like securing your assets time locking more than this is like time lock and speculate.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I really like that. Yeah. There's so many ingredients that people have yet to start playing with. Man, I could sit down and just, locking also allows for signaling, because if I say, look, man, out of this whole NFT series, I really like this creator, or it could be a Yelp, like a review process through locking, right? Whoever locks up their sats behind or their ETH behind, whatever they prefer the most, they're showing preference in a way that you otherwise wouldn't be able to show preference. And it's not as easy. You can't Sybil attack someone's provable cryptocurrency being locked behind something that they prefer. Whereas I can Sybil attack likes, or even upvoting, like if you have a very cost-efficient blockchain like Solana, and you upvote by sending small amounts of SOL, like pennies of SOL, like how do you know it's not just one dude sending himself from like 50 wallets to one wallet and liking his own content to be, so the ordering of preference can also be solved. So in other words, locking also solves the problem of noise to signaling on the internet. Because now if you lock behind preferences, especially if you have like a bunch of NFT collections, like you can have a more accurate read as to what the market really values over other things, right? So it's a Yelp. It's almost like you create a better Yelp through locking. So I'm bullish locking apps. I really want to see that because this world is only going to get more crazy with AI. There's more noise. You don't know who to trust. There's more manipulation on the internet. And I think we need better signaling mechanisms. And I think that locking opens up a world of signaling that we previously didn't have. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I do appreciate you for acknowledging it. There is so much potential there. I mean, another kind of use case that you could do is locking LP, and this is for multiple reasons. Like when you're trading meme coins, people want you to lock the LP so that you're signaling to them that, hey, you're not going to rug the community and you're kind of here for the long term. On the other side of this, if you lock an LP, I call it liquid staking vaults. So hopefully we can introduce that next year. You can then borrow against it, right? So if let's say I opened up $1 million, LP position on ETH USDC, and I took that LP, I put it in a vault, and now it's accruing fees, and I locked that vault for a year. I can now borrow against the potential revenue of what that LP position is with the underlying asset, the nominal or notional value of it. So it introduces a lot of cool opportunities there. It's a hyper tokenization and hyper financialization, and even hyper gamblization, I guess, to a degree. We could sit here and talk all these different ideas. I've literally spent,
you're in the middle of it all. But that's the thing, that you are in the middle of it. You are in the middle of divergence, which is like creating options in the market, and convergence, bringing people together amongst all of those choices that have been proposed and executed upon. So you're in a very unique spot.
I love it. I love it. The whole thing is just making sure, from my perspective as the CEO of this company now, ensuring that Emblem survives and that it continues on and that we find different types of business models. I've learned, the primary way to generate revenue in this space is through the fee model, and through demand. And Emblem does have vaulting demand, but there's different type of things that, you have to overcome consistently. Like, for example, vaults right now are minted on ETH. Anytime ETH gas gets above 20, people basically stop minting, right? Because they don't want to have to pay $40 to mint a vault unless there's, a resting bid on a rare Pepe that they have or XYZ asset that has a bid for like $1,000, right? Then we've learned that people will pay that if there is liquidity. But if there's no liquidity, then people aren't going to mint. But anytime Guace, drops under 10, we'll see 100 vaults created and minted in one day.
Wow.
And so, how do you solve solutions like this from a business standpoint is, I need to deploy on Solana, where users can pay $10. If they use our discount program, they can pay $10 to mint on Solana. And now they don't have to worry about, gas fees or same thing with L2s. But then, right. So I think this is the fun puzzle that ongoes. It's very stressful, to be honest, at times, but
I'm not anywhere near any of what you're doing. You're in the middle of all of this. I'm like an observer that is just playing with it all. Man, I couldn't imagine how much you're.
It's a blast, though. Wow. I have to be honest. You
gotta love it to be in it.
Yeah, this is why tell my past relationships that, right? This is why we host our spaces 3 times a week. Is we have so many diverse communities that we have to engage in. And then not outside of just supporting our communities, it's also, showing them, what are the possibilities that they could do with their assets. And Emblem's here to stay for a long time. And we have a lot of supporters. We have, 22,000 on-chain holders and a lot of people who've, made money and things like this from us. It's for us, it's then, attracting the larger capital allocators to understand the vision if we really want to scale this thing as fast as possible, right? Because we only have 5 people on the team. You're kind of limited to your funding at that kind of degree, right? And look how crypto is so cyclical. the funding comes in big spurts, right? It comes
Yeah.
in, big use cases, and it comes very fast, and it leaves just as fast, right? And then it could be dry for a year before that comes back again. So for us, it's just continue to spread the message, continue to build, which we've been doing, and we have a lot of stuff planned for Q4. I think that's going to be kind of the beginning of Emblem 2.0. We're calling it. We're going to share more details about our token and the plans and things like that, and I think everyone will be pretty excited. Maybe they aren't, but we have a lot of time to show people really what Emblem's about.
So you really don't see like a Magic Eden and Ordinal's Wallet or Unisat as a competitor then?
No, they are tangentially. I mean, Emblem, you have competitors on two sides. You have marketplace competitors, and then you have the bridging competitors or the interoperability competitors. Mm-hmm. For us, I would say our biggest use case is the interoperability side. This is why we've actually made our marketplace 0% fees. Is that generating revenue on a marketplace is very tough, right? You make 2% on whatever the sales are. For us, or we make $20 per vault. And so we actually generate a lot more revenue through vaulting demand. So for us, it's, hey, if somebody enters our ecosystem, then they could trade for free and they just pay $20. So for us, the thing is, hey, trade an NFT for $20. You can go trade on our marketplace for free versus trying to compete with the Goliaths like Magic Eden and OpenSea at a game that they're literally funded hundreds of millions of dollars. Like we're not going to win that battle anytime soon. But we do have a major edge in the interoperability space. And so for us, it's, hey, join the ecosystem, pretty cheap, $20 per asset or $10 if you're part of the discount program.
So per asset, per NFT that I want to move, I have to create a vault, and creating that vault costs me $20.
$20,
plus whatever transaction fees I have to pay in whatever network I move in.
And we do have a discount, like we do have a discount program. This is generally our power users. What we've noticed is, if somebody's minting 10 or so, they don't really care. But once they start getting into the hundreds, then they'll start using the discount program. And, for $10, it's for us, it's adding TVL, it's adding more assets to the ecosystem. And for the power users, they're saving a lot of money. And then it also attracts the arbitrage traders as well, which we see happening across chain, where somebody will buy a counterparty asset through the native dispenser, and then they'll list it higher on the ETH side marketplace. And then the person who's buying it doesn't want to have to go through the native experience because it's clunky, and they'll pay a $20 or $50 premium for the convenience. And so you get these arbitrage traders who help balance the market, and they're making profits, and then they're using our system and they're helping us generate revenue. And so it becomes this, you want this kind of like a symbiotic relationship where everyone's winning.
So just to be clear, again, I know you get this a lot. If I move an asset from Bitcoin to Ethereum, that native Bitcoin asset now lives in Ethereum.
Kind of. The
but
keys live on Ethereum.
The keys live in Ethereum.
The asset lives in a native wallet.
And then they can go ahead and move it back to Bitcoin. The new owner can move it back to Bitcoin whenever.
Yeah, whoever. Yeah. So again, just to kind of clarify here, if I'm taking a Bitcoin NFT to Ethereum, what you're doing is you're sending your asset into a Bitcoin wallet. You're taking your Bitcoin NFT, sending it into a Bitcoin wallet that's inside of a vault. And then when you mint that vault, it's taking the seed phrase or the private key to that Bitcoin wallet inside the vault, and it's tokenizing it on Ethereum in an encrypted way.
So if I go to OpenSea, I see an asset that comes from Emblem Vault, I would know it's an Emblem Vault asset.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we have security. Okay. Yeah, we have security measures set in place where if I create a rare Pepe vault if I want to create a Nakamoto card vault, that's the like most valuable rare Pepe. In order to mint that vault, it has to have the Nakamoto card inside of it. Like you can't mint it without it inside. And we do have different collections with different parameters, but that's a security measure that we improved on from Emblem 1.0. Emblem 1.0 was if you find anybody who participated in that ecosystem, that was truly the wild west. You could like mint vaults that were empty, like it was just pure chaos. Like there's all kinds of different bad actors that were around it, and so this is why we had to scale it up and rebuild this entire system. And I think the complexity behind it and the early traction is really why there's no competitors that's really surfaced. Is that This is extremely difficult to build. I mean, the fact that Shannon, basically our founder, built this entire thing by himself is,
Wow.
to me, is true. It's truly astounding. And so for us, launching a token is really about getting him as much developer support as possible. I think from Emblem's standpoint, really, it automates a lot of things away. So like a lot of things that Magic Eden's trying to do with like buy now or buy a token with any token and stuff, we could do that at Emblem Vault, and we could basically eliminate 50% of their work staff just by automating everything through Emblem Vault. So for us, staying nimble really just requires just hiring and a few more developers to the team, and really just building out the ecosystem. And so we're very fortunate that Shannon's a 100x developer. He's proficient full stack developer in multiple languages. And we just need to get them out. And that's really kind of our focus here over the next, year or so.
Okay, so this coin, this token, what is it going to be called? Is it going to be the Emblem Vault token? What are you guys going to call it?
It's called Emblem Vault Keys. It's actually...
is it already trading? Has it launched?
Okay. Has not launched. We etched it on runes actually very early. So a lot of people in our community are aware that the token exists, but for us, we're not just going to launch a token. Like we have a whole multi-year strategy that we've built around this, and we've planned it very meticulously.
You can still etch it on runes, or has it all been etched out by you?
We pre-mined the whole thing with the plan. This goes back. We pre-mined it in when runes launched, the same day that it launched. So you could probably, I think it's rune number like 5,000 and something. And so we've basically been building a whole strategy around it because Emblem Vault, again, going back to the utility and the use cases, and you want to have a whole symbiotic relationship behind all of it. And we'll be releasing all that information this quarter at some point. So we do host a town hall the last Thursday of every month. And you can also find it in the pinned post on the Emblem Vault account. We post our slides there, and you can kind of see the updates, and we give all the information. Like we're a very, very transparent company, probably one of the most transparent companies that's in this industry. We share everything from the analytics to our intentions to testing to everything, because when you're a small team, hiding in obscurity is actually a detriment. If you're a massive team, you can hide things and do surprises, but when you're a small team, you can't, and you need people to be on board and understanding what's going on, especially with a technology like Emblem that's pretty confusing to understand at first until you kind of see what's going on. And so the education barrier is very high initially. And so for us, it's really just educating people what it is, answering questions, building community. And then eventually, you get people who approach you to say, oh, aha, this is what I can do. And then you get to share it to their communities.
That's awesome. Well, I'm really happy that we had this conversation. There was a mystery to about you guys for me. Like every time I interacted with you guys, saw you on a space, there was something, and now I understand why, because you guys are in the center of it all. You guys are doing the crazy work no one else is. So congratulations. And where can people follow you? How can they keep in touch? Where can they learn more about it?
So you could find me. I'm easy. All my accounts are just at Jake Gallen. So on Twitter, it's just at Jake Gallen _. I basically live on Twitter. So you can just find me there. At Emblem Vault is the same thing, at Emblem Vault on Twitter. Our marketplace is Emblem.Markets. I would say that's probably the best place to start and really kind of understand the ecosystem. And there it'll take you to our minting platform. And, we're available 24/7. Adam McBride, who's also one of the partners at Emblem, he lives terminally online like me, and so does our founder. And so we're available literally at any time that you want to help answer any questions, or at worst case, hop in our Discord, and I'll answer anything that you need. I'm always available in the Discord.
And so how do you guys keep up with everything? Because you're keeping up not just with Bitcoin, but you're keeping up with Solana, Ethereum. How do you do it?
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough. You got to sacrifice some of your life. Fortunately for us, we've built a good rapport and with most of the Bitcoin community and a lot of the Solana, or a lot of the Ethereum community. Eventually, as we expand through our expansion program, our goal is to deploy on one new chain per month, potentially two, beginning in 2025. And so through this expansion, we'll begin to network with all these L2s, all Solana, right? All these meta protocols, and be able to network the whole community. And for us, it's really just hey, if you ever need something cross-chain, if you need a cross-chain NFT solution, then reach out to us and we'll be able to provide it. We've done some really cool stuff so far, and we've planned a lot of plans to continue to do that and bring everyone in line and teach them what Emblem is. So yeah, Raph, really appreciate you for having this call and inviting me on. It was awesome. And the fact that we talked for almost 2.5 hours kind of shows, the energy and excitement that we share for each other.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk more, but I understand that you're a busy guy. And thank you so much for being with us here at the Crypto Vigilante, your home for OG crypto analysis. Yeah, cryptovigilante.io, guys. Subscribe to the channel. Don't be lazy. Like it, share it, whatever. It was really a pleasure, Jake. And until next time, peace, love, anarchy. Now we are dealing with a possible world war. Some will say we are already in a world war. My condolences and prayers go out to everyone suffering under tyranny. It really sucks. I'm really sorry. But it seems as if people are starting to wake up regarding crypto more and more each day. And so it's in the description right here to read, where we give our secret sauce and what we teach our subscribers, because things are just that bad. Everyone needs this information. People need to know about sound cryptocurrencies that are actually private by default, and to know how to properly use crypto.